and then they go over it and go over it and go over it, and then they push that button at the last minute. So literally, the advisory just printed, and it's in my hands. But I want to talk about something because at this point, the storm is so close, what happens is baked in the cake for South Florida. The cone track, no matter what, is not going to change that much. The impacts in South Florida are not going to change that much. And we're going to see a major hurricane landfall in the Keys, probably the lower Keys. And the rest of South Florida is going to see the weather that we're seeing now, which is bad, get worse as we go through the morning. So, I got a good solid 1 hour of sleep, so I'm going to need my glasses to focus here this morning. But let me go to what I think is most important right now, and that is this. This is the eye wall right here. That part right there, that's the eye wall. That is the worst part of the hurricane here. We're talking about when the center right there reaches the Keys, but really what it's about is when this reaches the Keys. There is Key West. There is Big Pine Key, there is Marathon, and it's when this area right here reaches the Keys that the winds will come up substantially. They will go over 100 miles an hour and then 110 miles an hour, and we could see some winds even in excess of 120 miles an hour with gusts well above that. So what we're looking at is when this reaches land and the Keys. This point right here is kind of a meteorological significance. When the center crosses the coast, then technically it's landfall. But it's that leading edge of the eye wall that is one of the most significant parts in terms of weather, and that's impacts on the Keys. So let's do a little distance measuring here because the storm is moving about 10 miles an hour. And what I'm going to do is draw a line on the map here, and our computers seem like they are cranking at full speed. So we're about 20 miles from Key West there, and at 10 miles an hour, which we're going to be, say, conservative because the storm's moving a little bit slower than that, we're about 2 hours away from the eye wall reaching Key West. We are about an hour and 50 minutes from the eye wall reaching Big Pine. And because we're on the side of it there, we're maybe 2 hours and 2.5 hours from the eye wall reaching Marathon over there. So all of these things are really the things that the people in the lower Keys, who I understand cell service is now down, are probably just listening to us on AM radio from South Florida, or maybe the Keys radio, our radio affiliates in the Keys. And so the message from the National Weather Service in Key West is get to your hunker down place, your internal shelter right now for those of you who stayed behind. Now is the time. The message literally said, put protective shoes on, because after the eye wall hits and there's windows breaking and there's debris everywhere, the last thing you want to do is cut yourself and your feet and injure yourself, because you're pretty much on your own from this point on until the storm subsides enough that help can arrive. And help, unfortunately, because of the circumstances, is going to be limited, and in some aspect, many folks have put themselves in harm's way. But that being said, protective shoes, get a mattress, a blanket, anything you can use to protect yourself, and get it ready to pull over you when the eye wall arrives. That's the message from the National Weather Service in Key West, and it was a fairly urgent message, and they included in the message, please share with anybody you can. So that's it. Let's look at the eye wall again, right there, bearing down on the lower Keys and less than 2 hours away from reaching the lower Keys. Now, as we zoom out, you can see there are pretty good rain bands, and all of this stuff has been just kind of the regular aspects of a major hurricane. Very strong squalls now in the lower Keys, the middle Keys, and the upper Keys. And for us in South Florida, over the mainland, Miami-Dade and Broward, some very heavy rain bands as well. You can see activity that stretches all the way up into Palm Beach County, and I'm going to change my mode here, so give me a second while I'm multitasking at 5:06 a.m. after 1 hour of sleep. But there are big thunderstorms that are up to the north, and they are moving through Miami-Dade and Broward right now, and so that issue is a tornado risk. And so let's go zoom in right now on Broward County, and you can see there this pretty good squall line that prompted a tornado warning earlier. So Folks in Broward need to be prepared also to move to the interior of your house and also assume a somewhat hunkered down position. Typically in a tornado warning, we say get to the interior of your house away from windows, but in this case, almost everybody has their windows rightfully shuttered up, so it's just better to get to the center of your house so that if a tornado hits your house, the damage is done on the outside of it and you're doing okay on the inside of it. So now let's talk about the advisory here, and I'm going to punch it up so that you can see as we go here. And first off, we'll talk about the stats because that is of some significance. And I went to sleep at 2 and I went to sleep at 2 to a Category 3 and woke up at 3 to a Category 4. So the storm has intensified. At 2 a.m. was 120 miles an hour. At 3 a.m. Has the hurricane hunters found winds up to 130 miles an hour. And Category 4 now. We're in the low end of Category 4, but nonetheless, it is a very significant storm at Category 4. And the pressure falling down, and our meteorologists here in Weather Control who've been monitoring it before I just came back said the pressure's down 2 millibars in the last hour, so an indication of possible continued strengthening of the storm. Now, the hurricane hunters information goes in to help create the wind radii here. And that red area right there, that is the hurricane force winds. But a more detailed analysis shows that there's this lobe of hurricane force winds that extends fairly far out to the east, kind of like that, or maybe a little bit more like right up to the Keys, but it extends to the east. So while the center and the eye wall will be crossing the lower Keys up to Marathon, there are very strong hurricane force winds that will be arriving on the middle and upper Keys to the north and east of Marathon. So the folks also need to be aware of that in the upper Keys because it's going to be a bad situation there. Okay, Dave, let's go forward here very slowly in time. So we're going to step this through because at this point the cone literally is irrelevant as far as we're concerned. It's the wind field. And let's back up just a little bit. We're doing this manual because the advisory just came in. And so right about there, that's good. So 8 a.m., that's 3 hours away. You can see the storm is making landfall in terms of the center crossing a land mass at this point. The hurricane force winds now covering much of the Keys. And the orange area, that's this area right here, is the very high winds of 60 to 70 mile an hour range with hurricane force gusts. So that's gusts over 75 miles an hour. And this yellow area here, that's the area that extends now through Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. These are the tropical storm force winds. So that is, we're going to step along a little bit further, but we're going to go to the National Hurricane Center now because one of the specialists is standing by there, and I guess our questions at this point are, and as soon as I can see who it is, I'll know who I'm talking to. Oh, okay.
Hey, Craig,
Mike.
it's Mike.
Hey, Mike, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. So we're kind of, everything's baked in the cake as far as South Florida is concerned. There's not going to be any deviation in the track as far as South Florida is concerned. What are the things we would be concerned about or looking for at this point?
Well, here in the east coast of South Florida, we're going to have a prolonged period of sustained tropical storm force winds all the way through today and into tonight. We see wind gusts to hurricane force, and that's going to cause tree damage, power lines down, and maybe perhaps even widespread power outages. Going to have very heavy rain. We're also going to have storm surge, even in the south part of Miami-Dade County. We could still see storm surge inundation. We still have that storm surge warning in effect from North Miami Beach all the way down to the Keys, where we could see storm surge inundation up 3 to 5 feet, even into Biscayne Bay. And obviously a much more serious situation in the Keys for storm surge and wind than here in mainland South Florida, though.
Right, and so we were just talking about the eye wall there, and while some people are trying to time where the center makes landfall, it's really about where the eye wall reaches the coast, and Key West National Weather Service is warning people now to get to their hunker down position.
Right. This is a time that if you are still there in the lower Keys, this is the eye wall right here, and that's where those Category 4 winds of 130 miles per hour are. And as that eye wall moves over the lower Florida Keys in the next few hours, that's where those winds are going to occur. And in addition to that, you're going to have that big push of water just to the right of the center, of storm surge, where we're going to see that 5 to 10 feet of inundation. But unfortunately, on the Keys, on the other side of the eye, after the eye passes, you're going to have the northwest wind or northerly flow that's going to inundate the lower Keys and probably Key West from the Gulf side. So you're going to have 2 rounds of storm surge to deal with in the Keys, in addition to that catastrophic wind damage.
Right. Now, on the radar there, the eye looks open to the south. What is the significance of that?
Well, it's probably, there could be a couple of things going on. It could be that the strongest winds are going to be on the north side of the eye, just because that's where the stronger shower and thunderstorm activity is. It also could be that there's a little bit of radar beam blockage going on the south side, because there's so much strong thunderstorm activity on the north side of the eye. The radar might not be seeing what's going on the south side. But generally, as tropical cyclones start to move northward and start to become a little more sheared, most of the rain and the weather and the strong thunderstorms ends up being on the north and east side of the center, and the south and west side can be a little less rainy, but still very windy. And we're going to see these bands, these feeder bands, continue to move in to South Florida even long after the center goes by us. So we're going to have a prolonged period of heavy rain. That's what's going to really help those rainfall totals to add up.
Right. And we're just now going through the advisory. So, and honestly, I haven't seen the points beyond 12 hours. So can you tell me what the intensity is, the forecast up the coast there? I know there's an increased amount of shear, possible land interaction, but what are we looking at say, 24, 36, 48-hour points?
Yeah, at the 24 hours, we're still forecasting it to be a major hurricane as it makes its closest point of approach to the Tampa area. That would be around, early tomorrow morning or late tonight. And then still a hurricane up here in the Florida Panhandle after it makes its final landfall. So you're going to see widespread damaging winds throughout a large portion of the state of Florida. So you're talking about significant damage to trees, power lines, buildings, homes. It's going to be a really widespread wind event because, again, Irma's wind field is so large. The entire state is going to see sustained tropical storm force winds for the most part, except maybe the far western panhandle. And then that core of hurricane force winds is going to move right along the coast and also spread inland into portions of central Florida away from the coast as Irma's center moves northward.
Okay, Mike, thanks for joining us. We'll check back with you in a little bit. So that's the expectation, as Dr. Michael Brennan said, about the storm maintaining major hurricane strength. You'll notice that he didn't say Category 4. He said major hurricane, because basically Category 3, 4, or 5, the major hurricane categories, are considered major because of the significant amount of damage that the hurricane can do in terms of structural damage, not only tree damage, but structural damage to homes and buildings and the infrastructure. So at this point, if it weakens back to Category 3 as it moves to the north, the overall impact may be lessened somewhat, but it's still going to be a significant event. So let's get back to where we were on the forecast track, and here is 8 a.m. And so once again, the red area, the hurricane force winds, here's the hurricane force gusts. And I know there's a lot of people listening on radio, so I'm converting my brain into visual speak, let's put it. When I say here is all of the Keys covered by the hurricane force winds. Extreme southwest Miami-Dade, hurricane force winds. Much of Miami-Dade and into Broward, hurricane force gusts. So that's winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour with gusts over 75 miles an hour. And then Broward into Palm Beach County at this time at 8 a.m. Winds are anywhere from 40 to 60 miles an hour with gusts close to 80. So let's go forward a little bit in time here. There's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and we'll stop there at noon. So there's noon. And basically, this line right here that I'm drawing, which is 25 degrees north, goes almost through Key Largo. So it's the center of the storm is almost parallel to that line, maybe a little bit above it. So we're approaching our closest approach to South Florida, meaning the hurricane's not going to get any closer to us. It's not going to get any farther away from us in Miami-Dade. And so the worst of the weather now is coming in Miami-Dade. We'll see tremendous rain bands coming in, very, very strong wind gusts. All of Miami-Dade and much of Broward now at noon today is in the hurricane force wind gust band there. That's the 50 to 70 mile an hour winds with gusts to 90. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see some gusts in some of the heavier squalls above 100 miles an hour. And then in Palm Beach County, still tropical storm force winds. And the center now between Naples and Key West and moving slowly to the north-northwest. So let's move a little bit more forward here. There's 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Okay, we can stop there, 5 p.m. So because the storm is moving a little bit slower now, we're going to deal with the worst impacts here in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, a little bit longer. It's going to be a long day of very strong winds and very strong wind gusts from the Keys through Miami-Dade, through Broward, through Palm Beach County. The Keys, though, will be seeing their winds coming down. Although the storm surge could still be continuing, the storm surge by late in the day today will begin to be receding. But meanwhile, on the west coast, the storm is at its closest approach now to Naples, if not over Naples. And of course, the core is the thing we're concerned about, that eye wall. That's the part of the hurricane that's going to be doing a tremendous amount of destruction. Now approaching Fort Myers, and let's go forward into time here once again. So we're at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Let's stop at 9 p.m. Or that's a good point. Okay, so we're at 8 p.m. now. So the Keys now have tropical storm force winds. Finally, the winds are only in the, and I say finally, but considering what's coming, only in the 40 to 60 mile an hour range. Miami-Dade is in the 40 to 60 mile an hour range, and Broward as well, 40 to 60 mile an hour range, maybe a little bit heavier, up to 70 and some higher gusts. All right, so let's go forward here because the implications to the Tampa Bay area remain extreme, and that is, once again, we're looking at Category 4 intensity near the mouth of Tampa Bay at midnight, 1 a.m. tonight. So the issue is that the European model, which has nearly outperformed the U.S. GFS model by a factor of 2. It has been twice as good in its forecast points so far with Irma. Is forecasting a westward shift up here along the west coast of Florida. Why is that significant? Because the storm stays over water longer, the storm is able to maintain its intensity longer, and there's a tremendous storm surge event following the hurricane on the way up the coast. On the backside of the hurricane, we have these winds that are blowing onshore, and ahead of the hurricane, they're blowing offshore. And if the hurricane follows that track as it's approaching Tampa Bay, it's likely that the water will go rushing out of Tampa Bay and the bay will begin to drain. And then once the storm reaches Tampa Bay and goes north, the water will come back in with tremendous force and begin to flood the bay again and then go outside of the bay. So there we are at 2 a.m. The forecast intensity is Category 3, but still a major hurricane. And now the storm is north of the bay, and so the water's coming rushing back in, but also pounding the coast there. Let's go a little bit further to the north because we've got people who have fled the storm to Ocala, Gainesville. We're in the Big Bend area here, and this is 8 a.m. on Monday. In South Florida, it is a very breezy day by typical standards. We would call it windy down here. So this is tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The winds are 20 to 30 miles an hour and some gusts higher, but it's tolerable. Same story for the Keys, but in North Florida, as the sun is coming up, hurricane force gusts are bearing down on Tallahassee, Gainesville, Ocala, already seeing them. And there's a storm surge threat continuing up into the Big Bend area here of the northeast Gulf of Mexico. And let's go a little bit further here, and you can see the cone there, and we're widening out. So now the forecast is, with a little bit of this westward shift, that a Category 1 is possible into the Florida Panhandle there from either, this is Apalachicola over here, back east down through the Panhandle. So Tallahassee now, for folks who fled to Tallahassee, are under the threat of a hurricane. And really the only area of the entire peninsula is basically from about Fort Walton Beach towards Pensacola. And if there's a continued westward shift of this whole thing, they could be under the gun too. All it would take is, because this is the cone we've got outlined here, all it would take would be the storm to work its way over to the left side of the cone, and now you've moved the whole wind field on over there to the left. So I know we've talked about a lot here, a lot to digest, but the main message right now, the very main message, is that the eye wall, this part of the hurricane right here, is quickly approaching the lower Keys and the middle Keys, and this is the most destructive part of the hurricane. So Elliot and Vanessa, as the National Weather Service of Key West said, folks in the Keys who are most likely just listening to us on battery-powered radio need to get into their safe room, their interior room, their hunker-down position, because the worst of this storm is about to be unleashed on them.
In about an hour and a half, you said, right, is when we'll probably feel the effects of that eye wall the most, the heaviest.
That's right. That's correct. 7 a.m. looks like it's on to the Keys, so the winds are going to start ramping up and rather quickly too. Anytime after 6 a.m. I would say at this point.
Craig, I have to tell you, I had a very disturbing conversation with Jim DeFede a little while ago. As you guys know, there are 4 shelters of last resort in the Keys: Key West High School, Marathon High School, Coral Shores, and Sugarloaf School. And my understanding is that there are small groups of people in these locations. Right now at Key West High School, there is a small group of people in the dark waiting for this to happen. Maybe they are listening on the radio. What can you tell them at this point?
Well, it's going to get worse, and you need to be ready. You need to have a plan in those locations. Now, we talked to the sheriff, the Monroe County Sheriff, at around 1 a.m. I think it was, 1:15, and he was talking about. He was in Monroe,
right.
Our marathon rather. And so he said they only had about 50 people there in the dark. They had just a small light, and they were in a gymnasium-like structure. But for those of you listening in the Keys, you may have to flee the water. In other words, there may be a time, especially to the right of the storm track here. There's the storm track, or maybe I should say more like that is the storm track right there. The eye may come very close to Key West. But the bad part of the hurricane, and I'll zoom out here to give you a little better perspective, the real bad part of the hurricane is this right eye wall over here. And so that's going to come up and push a tremendous amount of water into these islands in the Keys, the middle and lower Keys. And so for those who are listening to us, and you need to have a plan that if the water comes rushing in, what you will do next. And it may be climbing up whatever things there are to climb on. I mean, it's that desperate of a situation. You do not want to be in the storm surge water. There's tremendous, tremendous force, and you will be carried out of the building if the water comes into the building or if the water starts to cause the building to deteriorate. So you need like your last resort. The folks there are in what are called shelters of last resort, but you need to have a last resort, a last resort plan in your shelter of last resort.
And it's in that eye wall where we're going to see those sustained winds of 130 miles per hour?
Yeah, that's right. It's the worst part of the storm there, and that's where the winds are the highest, that northern eye wall, because the winds are strong and there's hurricane force winds all around the eye wall here, but it's right in here that those are the highest winds of the whole hurricane, and those are the winds that are moving to the north. And the significance is that the winds are going in a southerly direction, so water is being pushed right through there, and as this line right here gets to the Keys, that's a wall. I'm sorry, not a wall, but that is a storm surge, which kind of has the same appearance of like a tsunami, where the water comes rushing in and a wave on top of it comes in, and so the water's deeper, and a wave on top of it comes in, the water's deeper. And because the Keys are so low, what happens is that as opposed to storm surge that goes far inland in some parts of southwest Florida, the mainland, the Keys are so low that waves will be on top of the storm surge. And so as the water's in there, now